Sparking Change with Gigi, a show that aims to make the world a better place by bringing together authentic minds. This show encourages each of us to be the change we wish to see in the world. Get ready to be inspired and join us on this journey to create a brighter future for all.
Welcome everyone to Sparking Change with Gigi. I'm your host, Giovanna Tardarone, and today's show is powered by World Energy Healers. Join us at the Holistic Wellness Summit on November 1st. Visit weqhssummit.com for more details. And today we're going to be talking about Feel to Heal, right? The power of processing emotions at a cellular level. Please help me to welcome Jessica Aniela. She is a hypnotherapist, coach, and transformational guide. After a successful 17-year career in sales and marketing, Jessica discovered her true calling, helping others unlock their potential and overcome their inner blocks that hold them back. Certified in NLP, hypnotherapy, EFT, she empowers her clients to release fear, build confidence, and create lasting success from the inside out. Welcome, Jessica. Pleasure to have you.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much, Giovanna. I'm so happy to be here. So grateful that we connected.
Absolutely. I know it took a little time for us to get things right with making the show today, but we were determined to making it happen. Mm-hmm. So love to hear your story. Give us like what really inspired you to have this transformation and really switch, because after 17 years of dedicated in corporate sales, and I definitely can resonate because I was there. What inspired you to kind of like switch roles and really get into helping others at a different level, obviously?
Yeah, how I started, a little fun fact about me, I used to paint rocks door to door when I was 5 years old. Painted rocks, selling to all my neighbors. I used to negotiate, the cost of my beautiful masterpieces. And I found that was, later, fast forward in my early 20s, I got involved in corporate sales, and I really discovered my unique skills. And what really made me successful and kind of set myself from really stand out is really developing those amazing relationships, long-term relationships. I didn't see myself as a corporate sales executive. I saw myself as a collaborator, a partner in their business, right from year one. And that's why I won awards every single year. It's always in the top 5 in the country, number one year, and made every single trip. And people on my team were like, wow, how are you such an consistent overachiever? How do you do that? And I created a system. Everything is a system. The system of brushing your teeth, waking up in the morning, doing your rituals, like journaling and things like that, and meditation. So I created a system in sales and how I went about it. And I didn't really, I'm not pretty much, I don't believe in a box. I believe in outward thinking, and I'm also an early adapter. So I recognize that about myself, a forward thinker. And then I was always doing something different. I was always networking, doing things like that when networking wasn't even a thing back in the 90s. So, and I met a lot of C-level executive, developing these amazing relationships. And I really enjoyed that. But then I got into medical sales later on in my career. And I thought, because I had this deep desire to help people always since I was little. Mm-hmm. I felt like I had a higher calling. Even I felt different, right? When I was a little girl, I always felt sort of like the outlier. So the black sheep, you want to call it. And I call it the outlier, and or the white sheep. So I was always, I felt not part of a group. I always felt different. I would sit at somebody's table, meaning, part of a group, but then I was like, okay. After a while, I felt like it's time for me to move on. And even in relationships. So because I would outgrow them. So I would always move on. And I'm like, So when people are like, I could listen to people like, oh yeah, I had my childhood friend. I'm like, how's that? I've never had that before.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what that's like. But I'm all about developing relationships and building relationships, which I do with my clients. And and I felt like God was calling me back in 2013. And I had
So there it started.
That's when I really started doing, actually back in 2012, I started doing meditation. So when I was starting to do like deep meditation, I felt like, I was observing my patterns. I was becoming the observer in my life. And I realized that I had these like relationship patterns that were repeating over and over and over. I'm like, how am I attracting these types of people? I'm not them. I don't have the belief system that they have. I don't have the values are completely different from the people I was attracting. So how is that possible? I was thinking, like, how is that possible?
You're asking yourself these questions to figure out the connection of the results in your life, right? Right.
And my personal relationships was starting to affect my health, the relationships I had in corporate. Like I attracted a narcissistic boss. I was overwhelmed. I didn't feel I connected in that company. I didn't feel like our values aligned. And I felt like, wow, this is totally not in alignment with me. And I guess find it very interesting because that reflected also my relationships. So I said, wow, I feel like I need to leave corporate. And I said, I felt like God was calling me every morning. I heard my name call, like, Jessica, I need to wake up. Until, one day I said, okay, I need a mentor. If you want me to leave corporate to start, I was doing mentoring on the side. I desired full time as a business, but I just didn't know how to go from an employee to an entrepreneur. I didn't have a support system. I didn't have anybody around me that actually did what I was about to do. And I asked God for a mentor. And I said, I promise if she shows up and we connect, I'm going to promise I'm going to invest in myself 1,000,000%. So I made that agreement. She showed up 2 weeks later. I was at a coffee shop. I was with my sister. We just left the gym and we're hungry. So we went to a coffee shop, like a cafe, and there's only 2 seats open. And it was right next to these 2 women. And we started connecting and talking, and she was also with her sister. It was very interesting. She was an acupuncturist. She's a coach. She shared her story, how she left corporate to start her own business. I was like, wow, this is totally divine. And I said,
no accident.
No, that was not.
No coincidence.
And you can't make those things up.
Right.
It's just too many things to make it feel as like, no, it's just no, it was a purposeful, very powerful connection and a divine connection. So I said, yes. I asked her if I can work with her. She didn't have to ask me. I said, when can I work with her? Like right now. I mean, I can work today I'm ready. And she's like, oh, okay. We started working together. She asked me what my goals are. I said, oh, I want to move to Florida. It was my childhood dream. I used to go there when I was a little girl to visit my grandparents every single year. And then I said, I felt Florida was like my home. And I always wanted to move there. So she's like, just do it. I said, yeah, right. So I said, I make excuses. So my parents are here, my family here. I don't have anybody. My grandparents passed away. And I did have, cousins and everything there, but I wasn't really that close. And so I said, I really don't have anybody. I felt, a little scared. And I said, I don't know if I could, people around me said, you wouldn't be able to survive. I would hear that in my head, like every day, like, oh, you can never move away. You would never survive by yourself. So you know what I mean? As when someone tells you that every single day, or whenever you talk about your dreams,
it makes you stronger, doesn't it?
Well, when
Actually,
you're younger, they put a kibosh on your dreams.
right.
They
Of course.
smash them into and they grill them into the ground where where you feel it's not possible for you.
And that happens a lot until you understand that.
Until you get it,
Yeah.
that's when I started to understand, like, okay, it's coming from them. They feel they cannot survive. They're projecting. They wanted to keep me safe. And it's nothing like they were doing that maliciously. It's just that was coming from their own belief system, their own blueprint. And I said, okay, but I'm different.
But that also fueled your energy to do it, right? Like, think about that. Or it could have gone the opposite way where you listen and then you stay put and you don't take any action. So it could have gone either direction.
Yeah.
You chose to say, regardless of what I may encounter, I'm going to give it a shot. What do I have to lose? Right?
Yeah, I wanted to follow my heart. I wanted to follow my dreams and follow what God has placed me. So the thing is, she invited me on a retreat in Hawaii in 2014 because she knew I was sort of having some emotional barriers from moving, or like ending my job. And so when I went there, I became more connected to my body. I started listening to myself. I started following my own inner guidance. And when I started doing that, my inner voice became so loud and said, you cannot go back to that job. So I listened. That's when I started listening. And I actually called my manager and told him I gave my 2 weeks notice. And I was really scared to do that. I had to take, it's like jumping off a cliff pretty much. And the thing is, she said, once you make that decision, everything's going to fall into place. I promise you.
Yes.
I said, okay, I believe you. She did it. If she could do it, I could do it.
That's right.
So, and I said, okay, I'm going to do it. And I did. And I was really scared after that. But I started just letting it go, really processing my emotions. I was, all this anxiety started coming up. All this stuff started arising, this fear, anxiety. I'm like, can I do this? I was like, wow, this is like life-changing decision I just made.
Right.
And I'm like, what's next? What? I had no plan B. I only had plan A. And I said, okay. So I started reflecting, like, what is it? I want to move to Florida. That was my heart. I feel my heart's in Florida. So I said, okay, how can I get there? Okay. And also I'm a visionary. So I see prophecy, prophetic dreams. I see visions. So I saw myself living in Florida and I also saw people waiting for me, waving, when are you coming? So I knew it's time.
Right.
So what I did was when I got back from Hawaii, which I stayed a month, I extended my trip. Which was really well needed. I didn't have any breaks, I would say, from working since I was like 16, 17. I just started working and I had no breaks. I always had a job. And so I needed a break to reflect on what exactly I want. What do I desire? What is Jessica? What makes Jessica happy? What is it that I want to, how do I feel I can make an impact in the world? Because that's what was my really fire of desire, is really helping others, like really making an impact. How am I meant to make an impact in the world? So I did a lot of reflection. And so when I came back from Hawaii, I put my house on the market with a realtor. And within 2 weeks, it was sold. I went to Florida to figure out where I'm going to be living. I first thought I was going to be an acupuncturist because I love it so much. But then I quickly realized I didn't want to be stagnant in one place. I want to be mobile. I wanted to be able to do this online so I can live anywhere. And if I can travel, I can do this anywhere. So that was my desire. And so I decided against going to, I was thinking of going to an acupuncture school, but then I decided against it. So then I I said, okay, I'm going to be like a mentor. Like, okay. So when I moved to Florida, finally in 2015, after going to China for a month, and that's another completely story. So when I came back from China, I got sick there. So I had bronchitis and all these other things. And so I had to recover. And then when I went to Florida to figure out where I'm going to be living. So I thought it was St. Augustine, but when I went there for a few days to stay there, I said, oh no, this is not like a Hawaii, because I wanted to find a place like Hawaii that made me feel safe, secure, supported, really kind people around me. I didn't see that in St. Augustine. So I said, okay, now what? I thought it was St. Augustine. So when a person I met was a realtor, she's like, have you ever heard of Palm Coast? I said, no. So I went to Palm Coast. It was 20 minutes from St. Augustine on the East Coast. And I said, when I went there, I was like, oh, wow, this feels like Hawaii. So everything's a feeling.
Yes.
So if you want to desire something and it's a feeling, it's you follow that. So when you feel like I know what it feels like, feeling supported and safe.
Correct.
So my body knows it. So when I go to a place and if I don't feel that, I know that's not for me.
Right. Because the feelings of something can either bring you towards what you want or bring you towards what you don't want if you don't listen to the feeling, right?
Yeah.
So you got a bad feeling from St. Augustine, so you knew that wasn't it. Another person would have said, well, you know what, this is what I can afford, or this is, is something that I'm just gonna have to deal with because I don't know. You decided to keep going. So feelings determine the decisions that we make in life. It comes from a feeling, right?
Yeah, from an emotion. Like
From an emotion, exactly.
Yeah, so in the body, it knows what safe feels like.
Correct.
Right?
I wanted to emphasize on that because it is a driver of our decisions. Emotions drive our decisions. And
but the thing is, if you've never felt safe and if you've never felt like supported, it's hard to find that if you've never experienced it.
But if it feels good or it doesn't feel good at the very simplistic level, you know what feels good and what doesn't.
Well, the thing is, if your body only knows what it knows, the knowns in the body, in the subconscious mind,
yes,
likes to feel comfortable in the being unsafe, even though it's negative. That's what the body knows, and that's what the body wants, because it sends a signal out into the universe, getting the same results. Because if you don't change the mindset, the subconscious programming, you're gonna continue to attract unsafe places and people.
But you have to make a conscious decision.
A new neural pathway in the mind, not just a decision. It's not a decision. It's a pattern. You're changing the pattern on a subconscious level, not conscious. It's
correct. But you have to make a decision to commit to doing so, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, you have to say no to things that you feel comfortable in.
Or build a new pathway, a new pattern to disrupt the old pattern.
And the only way to do that is venting out the old. So you have to neutralize, desensitize yourself to the old way of thinking.
Correct.
And that's through hypnosis and through EFT and NLP. And that's what I work with people to do, is really, because that was my journey.
Correct. And there's so many other modalities, but I do agree that is exactly
the fastest way to a result is through hypnotherapy. It's scientifically proven through hypnosis is the fastest way. So why would you do any other way? I mean, I did everything, to be honest with you. I've done everything. And until I started doing hypnosis, that's a game changer. That was a game changer for me. Right when I started doing it, I vented out those old patterns. So I was still I did NLP, I did EFT, I was doing all these things, and Reiki, was a Reiki master and teacher, moving energy out of the body.
Yes.
But it didn't release it on a cellular level.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to really tap into my subconscious and figure out, where am I holding those patterns of feeling unsafe, feeling rejected, feeling not good enough, all those things. So
Right.
I had to bring in positive suggestibility to vent out that negative programming that I was conditioned to feel and be in since I was a baby. So, and this is a lifelong, because these lifelong patterns it's not just a few sessions,
Right.
If you're thinking a few sessions, it's an illusion. It's like a false truth. If you're saying it's going to take a few sessions, then you're lying to yourself. It didn't take a few days to create that pattern.
Correct.
So, right. Like I went to an acupuncturist, and for something that I experienced when I was, my early teens, for example, I stopped getting my period at like 15, 16 years old. I don't know why it stopped. I remember wishing it away because I wasn't really comfortable with it. And then it went away. We're very powerful beings. And I went to, infertility doctors, all kinds of stuff. And until I moved to Florida, and I met a doctor from China, and he's an acupuncturist. And he said, to me, how long have you not been having your period normally? I said, well, since I was 15, 16 years old. He goes, well, it's not going to come back tomorrow. It's not going to come back from now, maybe a couple months, maybe a year, but I promise you it's going to come back. So I said, okay, just like a pattern. If it's a lifelong pattern, you might neutralize it tomorrow, a month from now, but I promise you it will be neutralized through hypnotherapy. It will vent out, and everybody's different. The thing is, you can vent out spiritually, right? Change the pattern. It happens on 3 levels, right? Sorry, 3 levels. It happens on a spiritual level first, like I do past life regression.
Yep.
I just finished up with a client. She had these old patterns of attracting narcissistic type of people. And that was really, over time started affecting her health, affecting the way she shows up in her career, and obviously relationships. That's where it started. So once we did past life regression, and I must say that's the most one of the most powerful modalities in hypnotherapy out there, because in 3 sessions we identify where this came from, another lifetime. So I believe in reincarnation. Everybody's different. I do regression therapy in this lifetime, but people are open to past life regression. Wow, that's extremely powerful. So she remembered 3 past lives. We healed those. That healed this current lifetime. We also had to identify in the body where she was holding these patterns. And it was all over.
So let's talk about the ancestral, emotions that we do carry. It's something that, again, it's not written in books.
Yeah.
But when we do this research, we come to understanding that sometimes our habits, our emotions, get triggered, right? Let's say our emotions get triggered and we have no idea why we get triggered. And truthfully, it could be because maybe your grandmother or your great grandmother experienced some kind of trauma from this particular incident, and it carries into our DNA, basically. And so we have no idea, this is at the energy level, right? We have no idea that we have that kind of energy stuck in our system. And so it does, interfere with our decision making. Like if we are afraid of flying and we have no idea why, but we're just very afraid, it can essentially mean that your great grandmother was on a flight and things went wrong and she got very nervous, and that her energy got, put into our DNA basically. And that's why we feel that way, but we never know until we do this kind of work and we dig deep to try to understand what's creating this discomfort in the body, right? That leads us to sometimes going down the path of illness.
Yeah, and these are stemming from belief systems. It's a blueprint.
Yes.
That's passed down from generation to generation to generation. Like the thing is, I had a pattern of rejection that was been passed down. Not feeling not worthy of any great things. I didn't feel worthy. Everybody deserves it more than I do. That's what I felt. I put everybody before my own desires.
And where do you think that came from? Like
that came from my parents. It all comes from the caregivers. You would develop your blueprint from your primary and secondary caregivers. So it's like father, mother, right? Or uncle or grandmother, grandfather, whoever you were brought up with. Mm-hmm. Or it could be brought up in a foster home. People are brought up with many different, or a single parent. They're both the primary and secondary caregiver. So then you understand how they learn, their suggestibility. And you learn a lot through, hearing their story. And that's why when I meet with a client, I always understand where they came from. I always ask a lot of questions. So I get a really a clear understanding of their environment and how they grew up. Mm-hmm. So, and that's important to know. So they're able to identify things, their blueprint, right? And what they experienced growing up and what they saw and observed, what their relationships with their siblings were like, if they had any, and also their friends if they didn't have siblings. So yeah, there's a lot of factors. It's kind of a complex thing. So I'm like a Sherlock Holmes. I help people really identify the blueprint, the feelings that are behind these patterns. So it's really like, for example, one of my clients, is bringing up a lot of emotions. She got, for example, the current relationship was bringing up some patterns of like overgiving, feeling that she doesn't deserve any better, like she felt like there was an attachment to that relationship, even though her body was getting sick in that relationship. But she had such an attachment to that relationship. She felt like she couldn't disconnect from it because it was something it was we call an ab reaction to something deeper. Mm-hmm. There was a deeper wound there.
Right.
That attracted this relationship. There was an attachment. So we kind of follow the sort of like the breadcrumbs, the stories, we follow the stories to interconnect them to see the bigger picture. So, and the bigger story. So you can see by kind of asking questions, and then in hypnosis is really identifying where it all started. So, and because sometimes, a lot of the times when you ask questions, they can get so far. But then when you get into the subconscious mind by bypassing their critical thinking, then you can uncover these suppressed emotions.
I was just going to say that it's people either suppress them, avoid them, but don't know how to process them, which kind of leads them to not feeling well, right? Beginning to attract things that don't resonate with them. Mm-hmm.
And when they avoid them, they suppress them because they're avoiding them. They're running away from them. They're not processing them. So their emotions are stuck in the body. They're suppressed.
And so what happens to them on the well-being side? When we suppress emotions, it's very easy to say, oh, I'm over that. It happened. To me, that's like shoving it underneath the rug.
Yeah, it is.
Thinking that, it's never going to hurt us because we got over it. And, for my own exploration and transformation, I understand that's not how the body works, right? We're against the gravity, let's say. The body is, if you hold and suppress these emotions from these traumatic experiences in life, your body's going to tell it to you in a physical way after a while. So,
Oh, yeah.
right. So let's touch upon that a little bit, because
Sure.
it's very
When I was little, I suppressed my emotions, right? I suppressed them until, and they caused a lot of gut issues. I had a lot of gut issues, and that's where, people store their emotions is in their gut. And so when I was in Florida, I uncovered the source of my gut issues, why I suppressed my emotions, because I went through abuse, all kinds of abuse. And when my soul was guiding me back to Connecticut, because I was living in Florida for 3 years. When I came back here, wow, was I triggered. So because I created space for healing, so I identified, right, where it started. And when I came back to where it started, then my body had this overwhelming amounts of sadness, tears, depression. I started feeling all these feelings again. I started having memories of my childhood coming back to me, and I started processing. So I knew how to process. So instead of in my past running away from my emotions, I started to accept them and process them
and release them. Most important.
Right. Well, when you're processing them, you're releasing them.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're processing and sitting in that emotion and being, okay with yourself, and say, okay, it's Jessica, it's okay. You're just releasing these deep emotions you had since you were a baby. So that you were never taught how to process them, never taught how to release them. And that was something that I had to face and accept, right? And when I was able to accept them, as a form of, and it took a while to release them, because, it's a lifetime.
Of course.
Of relationships, broken heart,
mm-hmm.
all kinds of things. My grandfather dying, never processing that. I never processed a lot of things in my life. So I had to really face myself.
You know what? Share the story about your grandfather, if you like, that we spoke
Sure.
about the other day. I'd love for the audience to hear that story, because it's quite interesting.
It's very powerful. Yeah, it's a very powerful story. So when I was I think it was 17, 18 years old, and I was, my grandfather came to visit. My grandmother died 6 months before that of pancreatic cancer. So he really didn't want to live. He stopped taking medication, all this stuff. So he was here from Florida visiting, and he went with my great aunt to the casino. And he came back, was like midnight. I was watching this movie called The Seventh Sign. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It was with Demi Moore. It's a very prophetic biblical movie of the end of times. And when he came back, I'm like, oh, I said, Jaji means grandfather in Polish. I said, Jaji, so how did you do? And he's like, oh, I did pretty good. My, Cha-Cha means aunt. She did amazing. She always wins. And he went to the bathroom to wash up. All of a sudden I hear a bang on the floor. I said, I was screaming, and I said, went to this door, and it was locked, and we had to break it down. I had to do CPR on my own grandfather. And then he died in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. I never cried. I suppressed it. And I was really sad. Not just that, but I had a best friend. There was a guy best friend. And I called him to come over to kind of support me and everything. And he didn't. That was another disappointment. And all this stuff was really, I suppressed it. I didn't realize I was suppressing these things. And a few years later, I went out with a friend of mine to the mall. And there was a gentleman, an older gentleman, that collapsed on the ground. I think he had a heart attack. So they called the ambulance, paramedics came over, and I started crying. I couldn't stop crying. And my friend that was with me, he's like, what is going on? What's wrong? I had to sit down. I had to go down the stairs. I had to sit because I was crying. I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop crying if I wanted to. It was just coming and it was just releasing. And I was like, wow. And after that, I kind of reflected on things. I said, wow, I remember my grandfather. I remember I didn't cry. So, and it came. I started thinking about it. And it's in my 20s. And I started thinking like, wow, it must have been from that. I never showed sadness when my plus why I was close to my grandfather. And I never processed those emotions. And when I was triggered like that a few years later, wow, I just didn't realize that the body can suppress emotions like that you can keep it in the cells of the body until something triggers you, and that reaction, something similar, that can trigger an emotion.
Right.
So yeah, that, and I sat there and I didn't know what was going on at first.
Right. And you mentioned in the cells, right? At the cellular level. So you stored those emotions for how many years?
I don't know, 3 or 4 years
in your body. And I don't know if you heard of Dr. Bruce Lipton.
Yes, I met him.
Have you?
And, yes, I did. And I took a workshop with him, actually. I worked with him.
Yeah, I absolutely love him. And, he wrote The Biology of Belief. He's an epigenetics doctor, right? And he, his discovery was that when we, the cell, it's the epi part of the cell that actually, stores information. And so our emotions are actually stored in every cell. And, the environment that we surround ourselves with really dictate the performance of the cell. It's not the cell itself, but the epi part of the cell, really drives like what we have in our life, what we feel. Basically, our belief system and everything else is on the epi part of the cell.
Yeah.
Our emotions really drive the biology, which was fascinating. And I love his work. And so when we understand that connection, it makes us really become more aware of how important it is for us to process emotions. Because if we don't, here's another one. Dr. Bradley, who is the creator, the inventor of the emotion code, right? He talks about, think of a golf ball the size of an emotions that get lodged into our organs.
Yes.
Right?
The liver,
especially. The liver, the lungs. And if we do not process those emotions, that organ eventually will deteriorate. Basically, you will start your body. This is how your physical body gives you the message that the emotions are not processed.
Yeah, people store them like female women store them in the in the ovarian uterus. That's how they get ovarian cancer. In the intestines, intestinal cancer, heart. Because they create like calcification on the arteries, and it's also buildup of emotions, anger, sadness, grief, shame. All those things get stuck in the heart, and then what happens is when someone's heart is mostly closed, they're not open to new opportunities. They're not open it's like the mind and body connection is disconnected. You're totally disconnected from your body, and how you're feeling, because the heart is another brain. So it's the mind, the heart, and the gut. So when you bridge that gap between the mind and the heart and the stomach, because it's all coming also I think this is like a highway.
Right.
And if your throat, your throat chakra, your energy center there is somewhat has a barrier there, which I used to obviously have a barrier there. That blocks your connection to your heart, the connection to your gut. And once you're able to work on that and really speak how you feel, to express, not only feel, but it's important to express your emotions by words, sharing how you feel, but not only processing them, but also expressing. And when you're able to be in alignment, in attunement of the mind-body connection, you're able to be in alignment of those opportunities and goals and dreams that you are now connected. You're now connected to your heart blueprint. Because everybody's born with their own blueprint, right? A blueprint to whatever your heart's desires is coming into this planet. Everybody has their dreams, their heart-centered dreams that they want to create here, living here. What's most important to them that they desire to create. So once the heart is healed, the throat, it's all these energy centers. Really, it's working on every single energy because they're all interconnected.
Right. And it comes to realizing that, your desires and what you want, we are goal-seeking human beings. Like, we want to have goals. We want to achieve goals. And to understand why we can't get there, what's stopping us. I mean, the perfect example, you're talking about the throat chakra. I was born in Italy, right? So my dad made it clear, if we go to somebody's house, don't you dare open your mouth. You sit down on that couch and don't even ask for water. Don't speak, because that was showing respect, right? And as we got older, we didn't speak. We came here from Italy. We didn't speak English, right? We spoke Italian. So now we had another issue going on. So all of these incidents in my own life, like, I had to go back and heal them to understand, why was it hard for me to speak in public? Why was it hard for me to even get on camera and doing what I'm doing, right? Because I didn't have a voice when I was young. I kept quiet. And so understanding how that really affects us when we get older and in our life, in our careers, is essential for us to achieve our goals. So doing this, what we call inner work, right? You did a lot of inner work to process your emotions from the past, right? You did a lot of inner work to really change your habits, change your beliefs, in order to be where you are today. And yes, it's not easy, but it's a commitment that you make to yourself. Just like if you wanted to go lose 20 pounds, you make a commitment not to, have a snack every night. You cut something out. So it's the decisions that we make that really help us to grow, to achieve our goals. But understanding what's holding you back, sometimes you don't even know what's holding you back until you do this inner work and you realize, wow, that experience did affect me, in your present.
Yeah, it's and when you're able to not be triggered anymore, then you're healed. You healed that wound organically and with love and gratitude and forgiveness. Forgiveness is so important, is forgiving yourself. It's not for the other person, but really is most important is for you to forgive yourself of holding on to all that baggage that weighs you down. I didn't know I was carrying around such a big baggage of emotions. I thought I was like, oh, wow. I had an amazing time in Florida. It was a very powerful spiritual experience for me. But that was just the beginning. I had no clue what was actually waiting for me in Connecticut. I had no clue. And when I started doing that, I'm like, oh my God, I felt in the beginning I was in hell, literally, because I didn't realize what I didn't know. See, so your body will reveal things to you. And it's a really great time to process, because you know what, on the other side of it is where you'll be rewarded. You're not doing this for nothing. You're not doing it just to heal, but you are doing it not just for yourself, but your family lineage. You're doing it for people around you, and you become the example. Mm-hmm. So when you're around other people, they start to see you because you start to change. You're not that same person that left Connecticut to move to Florida. You're completely different. And when they see you, wow, Jessica has changed. I'm like, I have no clue who she is now. And they don't know how to react to you. So the way I was responding was completely different.
Right.
So they had to learn to get to know me again and get to respect me where I was not respected before. So I created boundaries. I really, really learned how to create boundaries. And that's so important because that is also self-love.
Correct. And I also believe that creates your true identity, is what I call, because once you do this inner work, you get to the core of who, who you really are, what really matters in life. And then you work from that place. And so nothing can shake you, right? Like, what people say no longer bother you anymore, or, when, something happens, you respond instead of react. There's all these great things that are now working from your authentic self, I call it, right? Working from that point, it's like you're solid, nothing can shake you. And so
because you build a strong foundation, you had to uncover where the cracks are in your foundation, so you're able to build a strong foundation long term. So no matter what happens externally, it won't shake you off your foundation. You have a strong belief system now. You can rise above any challenges that come your way. And you learn how to, and through this process, you learn to become internally strong, like a gymnast can lift their body sideways through their inner strength, their core, right? Their core becomes so strong, and you become that way. You can overcome anything. You feel like you're on the top of the mountain. You're this amazing person that can see, like, wow, I'm looking at my life, right?
You become the observer. Beautiful. You become the observer of your life, and you're not looking at what you cannot do. Everything is like, okay, how can I do this? You start to think differently, you start to speak differently, you start to see people differently. And it really, like, you become the change you want to see in the world, and I love that, because that's really essentially what happens.
Yeah, it's a ripple. It ripples out to people that maybe you knew in your past, and they get to you meet up with them again, and they see how you've changed, and inspires them. It inspires them to learn more about themselves, to maybe change their own patterns.
Exactly. You bring out the confidence in others because of your confidence.
Yeah, and it's and they see your inner light shine. Before, my light was dim, right? Dimmer. It wasn't always dim, but I went through a lot of stuff, and what happened is just suppressed it. So now that I did all the inner healing, I'm reigniting it. So it's like reintroducing. It's a really beautiful process, and then you get to see it's like you're doing the work. It's a lot of work, but then you reap the benefits, and I promise you that comes back to you a millionfold, in many different ways. And I've experienced many medical miracles. I've experienced things that are mind blowing.
Tell us one.
Well, my period came back within a year. I didn't have it since I was 15, 16 years old when I followed his formula, which I was taking regenerative herbs and acupuncture for a year, and then I did other work, spiritual work, and after a year, it was right on my birthday, June 17th, it came back, full blown period in 2017, June 17th, 2017, and it was there every single month, the same time. Other things I've experimented kahuna, which is in Hawaii. He was a really, I would say, highly intuitive. He had 2 doctorates in metaphysics and all these things. And he also was a veteran. I met him in at a mountain that my soul wanted to go to. Because I saw this mountain. I told my mentor about it. I said, "Oh, I really want to go there. What mountain is that?" "Oh, it's a Mount Fertility for women." I'm like, "Oh, I see. Well, I said, "I need to go there. I feel like my soul was like calling me there." And she said, "Yeah, I'll get back to you in 2 days if I'm going to take you there or if you can get there on your own." I said, "Okay." So she got back to me and she says, "You're going to get there on your own." I said, "Okay." So when I went on my car, and she told me a roundabout, but you can't see it from the road. So it's behind trees and all that stuff. So you have to really follow your inner guidance.
Right.
That's what I started doing. And so I went up, and then these 2 guys came out of the bushes, and I stopped and asked if this person is back there that, he's a kahuna. And they said, yes. I said, awesome. So I park my car, go down this dirt road in his hut. It's at the end of the road, and we're at the bottom of the mountain. And it was the most magical place because they have these big lithium rocks. And he was like, "What are you doing here? And who are you?" Because nobody knows about it. It's not known to the public. It's not a place you go visit. It's only a place where you feel drawn to, that people are meant to be there. And he's like, I said, I'm a friend of, my mentor. And she's like, oh, he's like, okay. So, and there was a woman there because it's a very, men are not allowed there. So he's like the guardian. He's actually found it. It's a birthing ground for Hawaiian, back then, thousands of years, for Hawaiian women that had fertility issues, that feminine issues. They also gave birth there. And so he had this woman gave me a hug, and she's like, okay, yes, you're meant to be here. Mm-hmm. So she took me to the top of this mountain thing. And there's like a big lithium pyramid rock, like human size. And there was other rocks, other stations. And she told me what each one was for. And she's like, where do you want to start? And I said, okay, I think I'll start at the top. So I started at the top, and I got there exactly when I was meant to be there, which is 12 noon, because the sun comes through the trees. It's like a portal. Right. And it started beaming on my body, on the rock, because lithium is made of what? Batteries are made of lithium. It's an energy rock. So I was, she told me how to hang on to this rock. And so that's what I did. And all of a sudden my body started releasing fluid.
Amazing.
I was releasing a ton of fluid. I must have lost like 8 pounds. And then I went to the other stations, and then I finished, and then I went to speak to him, and he told me, come every single day for 2 weeks. I said, okay. And what would you like in return? Would you like money or, and he goes, no, just bring me lunch. And he told me exactly where to get lunch. This Hawaiian, only Hawaiian people go there, this local place. I said, okay. So I went there exactly at 12 noon every single day for 2 weeks. And there is when I started healing my sacral area. So I, went through a lot of trauma, in childhood and adulthood. And so I had to heal that feminine side of me. And I started really healing. That was the beginning. And that was very powerful for me.
Right. Well, we're going to take it to landing. Yeah, we're almost, time is almost up, but I'd love for you to, your story is absolutely one that, I feel when you listen to your body, you listen your intuitive factors, right? Your intuition, it will take you and lead you to the right place. And that in itself is trusting, trusting the unknown. So thank you for sharing that story, because obviously you got what you needed by following those directions from your inner and higher self, of course.
Yes.
You're going to be at the summit.
Yes,
So I'm so excited as well. Tell the audience, like, why is it so important for us to, of course, come and see you and be at the summit, and how it can really help them.
Sure. I believe anybody going through, like, if they feel they have a lot of stress in their life, if, the relationships are not working, if things at work are overwhelmed, they're overwhelmed work, they're at a place of burnout. If that was me, I was at a place of burnout. I had a terrible narcissistic boss, and I was ready for a change. I was like, okay, there has to be something out there that can help me change my life. And that's when I started going to, a lot of things like this, the summits, and listening to, I went to a summit in Florida when I first moved. Right. I went to a place where there were a lot of healers, actually, a lot of Dr. Bruce Lipton. I met him there. And this is a place where you can learn more about yourself. Learning some new tools to help you uncover what are your next steps, uncover, like, what is it that I need to let go of? What are some of my barriers that are keeping me stuck? Right. And not, and where you feel stuck, not allowing, maybe you feel stuck not making a decision, and you want to make a decision, but it's like something's holding you back. You want to uncover that. So yeah, this is a place to do that.
Yeah, thank you so much. And really, it's about empowering yourself, right? Overall, learning what's out there that can help you to step into the best version of you. So thank you so much for joining us today. And I can't wait to meet you and give you a big hug.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Likewise. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Until next time, I'm your host, Giovanna Tartarone, and this is Sparking Change with Gigi. Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for joining me on Sparking Change with Gigi. I hope that our episode today has ignited a spark within you to create positive change in your own life and in the world around you. To learn more about how you can become a guest or supporter, head over to sparkingchangenow.com.